Free with Arizona Farm Bureau. It's Friday, it's 10 o'clock, so it's our Talk to a Farmer Friday. If this home feels familiar to you, it's because I have returned to the Noah and Brenda Hiscox home here in, you guys are in Eloy, right? Coolidge. Okay, so we're here in Coolidge. We have begun a new series, and this series is about the farmer, rancher, hunter. Because we have so many of them, and so many of my farmers and ranchers that I know love hunting, love the outdoors, understand wildlife management, the importance of preserving those our important lands, especially on the state and federal level. And so I thought, we need to do this. And Noah, since I had been out here before, and we have seen some of your, I want to call it mounts. Is that the mounts of the animals that you've hunted? And I just thought you would be a perfect first guest. So welcome, Noah, to once again Talk to a Farmer Friday. And we're going to be, for the next 2 months, for all of those that are joining us live, we're going to be talking about hunting, wildlife management. I'm even going to be talking to the director of the Arizona Game and Fish. I'm going to be talking to an individual that is president of an organization that spearheads hunting and preservation type of things. So it's going to be a really neat, possibly 2-month series going all the way through December. And I'm picking the time when a lot of you guys are out and about hunting. So Noah, how did you get started? I mean, what brought to you the love of hunting and why?
Well, first of all, good morning, and you're very welcome. Love having you.
Oh, thank you.
I've known your mom and dad and your brother, and so I've been happy to and blessed to know your whole family.
Oh, thank you.
The answer would be fairly simple. I think I was fortunate enough to have a really wonderful father. He was pretty athletic, and although we were a poor family, he would bring home wild little, mostly baby wild animals that he would just catch. And I had multiple wild animals for pets. Probably the most unusual was I had a flying squirrel for a pet.
Oh, how cool.
Northwest corner of Illinois. And
is that where you're from, Illinois?
I was born in the northwest corner of Illinois, a little town called Oregon, Illinois.
Okay.
It's about halfway between Rockford and Dixon, Illinois.
Oh,
so about 90 miles northwest of Chicago, right up by Wisconsin. But I had a flying squirrel for a pet for a couple of years, multiple rabbits, birds, different birds. I had a red squirrel for a pet as well, which was interesting. He was a full, big red squirrel, and I was the only one that could handle him. But and eventually, almost every one of these pets that I had, although I would take them outside and they would, so I kind of reacclimated them to the wild. Every one of them eventually left, hung around, would come and visit.
Oh, how cool.
Yeah, so it was really, pretty wonderful.
So some of that just spawned by a love for nature and a love of animals and appreciation for the outdoors.
Yeah, I loved everything basically wild, everything out. We were just about less than a quarter mile from a large river called the Rock River. And so I got to spend a lot of time down there, playing, fishing, duck hunting, rabbit hunting, squirrel hunting, all small animals, eventually deer hunting. But I just loved to be out. I felt that that's where I belonged.
It was outdoors.
Yeah, it was outdoors. And something you probably don't know about me, but my Christian name is Bruce Lee Hiscox. And I suspect that as a young boy, I just got renamed as a nickname Noah. Okay. And probably because of all the wild animals that my dad would bring me home a wild animal. It didn't matter what it was, and give me a week or two, and I'd have it sitting in my hands, eating out of my hand.
Wow.
So I was just, I just really enjoyed, anything that any one of God's creations.
So awesome. The nickname Noah is representative of your love of animals. That's awesome. So my next question, and I think of this for all of my farmers and ranchers here in Arizona and outside of our state, it's almost like there's this common thread of, if he or she is a farmer or a rancher, they've at least been bird hunting. There's just this common thread of, if they're in farming, if they're in ranching, they certainly have to be out in nature. Um, but they seem to also be hunters. So what's your take on that?
I think that, first of all, to be a successful farmer, you're going to stand in awe of all of God's creations.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everything is a miracle, whether it be a plant that yields food or fiber, a domestic animal that provides meat, milk, cheese, uh, or a wild animal that provides meat. Um, just to stand in awe of what God's created. That every seed is a miracle, and I think that you have to have that appreciation and and understanding that all of these creations that are God's works are something that we need to just be in awe of, and you have to have that faith to know that when you plant a seed, it's going to produce a fruit and then later food or fiber. So I believe that farming, ranching, hunting are really closely related. Just
There's a harvest property to it. I just thought of, based on what you're saying,
Yeah, that's true.
that because everything we hunted, we ate,
Hmm.
and I'm sure your family's the same way.
As well.
So there's that harvest mechanism to it. If I'm going to grow grain, my final intent is that I'm harvesting not only for the market, but especially, when this country was first founded, most of the food we were growing for ourselves. So there was a lot of that whole harvesting. So that makes sense. I appreciate that. And I do think that when you grow up on the farm and or the ranch, you have this real sense of something bigger than yourself.
Hmm.
And that because of that, you've got an appreciation for it. I know that the farm that my three brothers and I grew up on, same thing. Dad hunted, so all three of my brothers are hunters. I've done a little bird hunting. My kind of hunting is when I go to a discount store and I hunt for the perfect piece for my wardrobe. But I didn't quite get into the hunting like my three brothers did, but it's very, very typical.
We were born on this earth, eons ago, as hunter gatherers.
Yep.
That's how we survived.
Yeah.
It was fairly crude. We ran around with a rock or eventually a slingshot, eventually a bow and arrow, maybe just a club. But, we ate what we could scrounge up, whether it was a plant or an animal. And it was then eventually we learned to adapt, and we started keeping domestic animals for food, and domesticating, you know, other animals such as wolves to help us hunt. And then, of course, we also always hunted, and then eventually started planting our own crops and become quote farmers and
Yeah.
ranchers. So it was just a natural process.
Yeah.
We're just still there. We haven't, it's not like you want to forget your roots.
Yeah.
A lot of us are still, that's still very strong.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of your makeup, part of your soul.
And really, every people group, their origins, they had to start out, to your point, in that hunter-gatherer kind of
Mm-hmm.
setting and
Mm-hmm.
environment. So for the uninitiated, I have to ask this question. And those that are concerned about animal welfare, they may not be comfortable with hunting like you and I are, because we grew up with it, and you're an amazing hunter just in this room. I think Brenda called this the North American
Yes.
hunt, hunting.
Yep.
So we'll pan.
Strictly North American animals.
Yeah, strictly North American animals. Why is hunting valuable then and important to the environment, especially if it's managed like it is today?
Well, and as we mentioned, earlier, hunting is, of course, highly regulated, and it's regulated to ensure the welfare of the future of each and every breed of animal. And quite frankly, without hunting, a lot of animals today would disappear completely. That hunters are environmentalists, as are farmers and ranchers. We want to take care of not just the animals or the plants that we grow. We want to take care of the earth to make sure that it stays healthy and will always provide for us. We want to use as a farmer, because I'm wearing two hats here. As a farmer, we want to use the fewest and the least harsh chemicals available, to not just achieve a good yield of a crop, but also to protect all of the animals, whether they be birds or rabbits, any animal that's part of our environment, and even down to, let's be smart about this, taking care of the beneficial insects,
Right.
Not to harm them. So it's a tough balance. But there are places people don't realize, elephants, for example, in Africa. 20 years ago, when I was last in Africa, at that time, it would cost probably $40,000 to $50,000 to hunt an elephant.
Wow.
And some people are, they're like, oh my God, how could you kill an elephant? Well, if elephants are left unchecked, they will breed themselves out of food, destroy the landscape, and there'll be nothing for any of the animals left. Not to mention, at that time, 20 years ago, each tribe was paid, the local tribe was paid a minimum of $20,000 per elephant, plus all the meat
I was going to ask you
stayed
about
there
that.
with that tribe.
I had heard that if you are a big game hunter, you go to Africa and you hunt, there's regulations there too. And one of the things that they do with the meat is then not only pay the tribe, but they give the meat to the tribe.
100%.
Yeah, so
100%
that's
of the meat
awesome.
stays right there.
Yeah.
And those folks are starved for protein. It's what they need badly. But with hunting left unchecked, elephants, just stay on that one subject. There was a few years back, where one of the provinces over there, they banned hunting of all elephants, and they had only photo safaris. Well, it was in less than 3 years, they had to reverse that, because the elephants, when they got done, just wiped out the landscape. They were coming in and destroying people's, eating their gardens.
Because they were hungry.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that was green and growing. I've also heard from our anthropologists and some of our wildlife people that if, as they study the lands and stuff, and they've come across massive die-outs of, like here in North America with the buffalo, in ancient days ago, because they ate everything and then they starved to death. So, of course, our Native Americans did an amazing job of managing those herds, and there's big stories to that. But
and let me add to this. Before you leave Africa, lions are another good example. Some folks get really upset about any hunting of carnivores, period. If it weren't for hunters, lions would probably become extinct, other than in zoos. And you can understand why. People that have to live next to lions, they're not going to do that unless they're rewarded for it, paid for it, so to speak. Lions will just be poisoned or snared. There's no reason to, why would you want to live next to an animal that's going to kill and eat you? Um, uh, and so when those villages are rewarded, they're paid for each lion that's taken, then they can maybe put up with some of that.
Wow, interesting. Going to pause for station identification, so to speak. This is Julie Murphy and Noah Hiscox. We've started a new series on hunting, and I think Joel has somebody that has a question.
There was a comment for W in the next Arizona Forest of an outstanding shooting sports program that is
Awesome.
growing inside and support. So we thank you for your support on hunting and 4-H shooting sports.
Awesome. Well, thank you for posting. We appreciate that. And everybody should go through gun safety, and 4-H is probably one of the best places for youth to acquire that gun safety. We had, when my brothers and I were growing up, went through 4-H, and that was one of the offerings. So,
And hunter safety
yeah,
courses.
Dad always required us all to go through hunting, and all,
Mm.
and myself included, even though I'm not the hunter in the family. We all got our BB, started out with the BB guns, and then for the guys, because that's what they were interested in, moved up from there. For me, I was good with the BB gun for a while. Um, what, what, let's now talk about you and your hunting, and we'll pan around pretty soon. But what was one of your more exciting hunts?
Well, that's a really hard question to answer because I've been so lucky to I've got to hunt, and not only in uh, all of many parts of the United States, but Canada, Alaska, New Zealand.
Awesome.
I've been Africa. I've been many times, and so I've really been blessed. Usually, the answer would be uh, the most memorable hunt would be the most difficult hunt,
Mm,
and
sure.
whether you were successful or not really is not that critical. It's I think the harder you had to work for something, the more it meant to you. Uh, just elk hunting in the United States it can be one of the most dangerous things.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you're up there. You've typically hiked, miles. If you're successful, now you've taken an animal and you have to field dress it and pack it out.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's over very difficult
Yeah.
situations. I can remember my first elk in Arizona. We had hiked almost 10 miles as the crow flies, and I was tracking a herd of had three nice bull elk, and finally it was like trying to around 5:30, 6 o'clock in the evening when I finally shot my elk. By the time we got him dressed out and the gate properly taken care of, and of course the antlers, we had to make a decision what to do because we'd been out of water since about 10 o'clock that morning.
Oh my goodness, you guys.
Yeah, we thought we had plenty of water with us. We didn't realize how long we would be because we just weren't giving up. We had a spotter and he kept directing us from a high point on a canyon. And so we decided, but it was about 10:30 at night when we made the decision that we would be dangerously dehydrated and cold because we'd have to stay up all night feeding a fire to stay warm. That it was safer to just go ahead and pack out in the dark, and just myself and one other man. And so we did that, and we got ourselves really dangerously dehydrated. We did make it back, but it was about 2 o'clock by the next morning,
Oh
and,
man.
and that would be the elk behind me. And
Wow.
it's certainly not the biggest trophy by any means, but it means more to me because how hard it was,
Yeah.
what it took to do it. So I think that that's probably one of my most memorable hunts. But I can remember hunts. I got to hunt in Alaska. I went Dall sheep hunting one time, and
Are those white, those cool looking
yeah,
white,
beautiful white
white?
with a yeah
Yeah.
big
Okay.
big horns. and they're it's in the sheep family. We climbed some of those mountains to get up to where they are, and literally the wind would be so strong, you'd be up there on the, just on the back of that mountain trying to travel down there. You had to be careful to lean in and basically have one hand on the side of the mountain, or you could get blown off.
Oh my
and
gosh, Noah.
And not to mention you're walking in shale. It's almost like walking on marbles. So you have to, and every mountain I climbed that hunt, the the rams were maybe 1 inch too short. They have to be a full curl. And so I never got a doll sheep, never had a shot, because in each case it was just a little too short,
In
little
other
too
words,
small.
speaking of regulations, they had to be a certain maturity.
You have to be a full curl, what's called a full curl, which means the curl has to be up above their eye.
Oh.
And so you're judging maybe from 200 yards or possibly further. Is it a full curl or not? And if it's not a full curl and you were to kill that animal, not only would you lose your hunting privileges and no doubt your rifle, your guide, who I had a guide at that time, he could easily lose his license as well.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of teeth were in that.
And the reason for that regulation was because they wanted to protect the animal and make sure that they lived to a certain maturity.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah.
then
They wanted you can only take a fully mature older ram. He may not be even at that point. Very likely he might even be past breeding age. So,
but he's had enough time to breed so that that species continues.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, and Africa is the same way. I should mention, always in Africa, it's most honorable to shoot an older, mature male that is no doubt past his breeding time. He's no longer in the breeding pool, and so
that's like all species are supposed to be fruitful and multiply.
But
that's scripture.
You don't take the one that's actively breeding. You'll take
the one that's
it's most honorable to take one of the older animals that is past the breeding stage. For example, Cape Buffalo, you want one of the old Dugga boys that are out there. There's 2 or 3 of them running around together because they've been kicked out of the herd. Their days are done.
Their days are done.
Yep.
So let's pan around to see some of the more North American hunts that you've had. I see a bear here. I see a cougar up there.
Yeah, that's a black bear that was taken up by Flagstaff on Hutch Mountain at an elevation of almost 8,000 feet.
Wow.
And that was a bow hunt. He's quite a large bear. He's a bear that's over 400 pounds.
Wow.
So I was really lucky to
now what about
successful with him.
The mountain lion just to his right?
The mountain lion up there, that was in Devil's Canyon. And we started that hunt up close to Pine, Arizona. And by the time we got down, we were clear down to Devil's Canyon by the time I was finally successful with him.
Wow.
That was also a bow hunt. And that was with the aid of dogs tracking him.
Okay. And then you've got 2 wolves, right?
Those wolves were taken in Alberta, Canada, in an area, a ranching area, where it meets up against the foot of the mountains. And those wolves were wolves that had come down out of the mountains and were killing livestock.
Oh, wow.
The ranchers in that area had an agreement with a professional hunter that would, when they had issues with livestock deaths, he would come and set up and take these animals that, in this case, there was a man that was a cattle rancher, and he had several large, mature beef cattle taken by wolves. And so we set up on those dead animals and took out these animals.
And where was that at?
Alberta, Canada.
Oh, that's right, Alberta, Canada. You wouldn't be able to do that here in the United States.
Uh, Possibly
Probably.
not. I think in Alaska and in Canada, they have a lot more common sense. Um,
Than we do here in the United States, which how
yeah.
come I'm not surprised? No, I'm just kidding. Um, and then you've got this. So Joel is panning and he's showing the antelope and the elk. And what were those small little deer there?
That grouping of 4 deer over here, those are all. This is really kind of a neat little education piece because they're all white-tailed deer, all 4 of them. But you can see if you look carefully, they differ dramatically. Starting from the left and going to the right, that's a Coues deer or cows, Arizona cows deer. They have a small little basket rack. And the deer itself is about the size of a Great Dane dog.
Oh, wow.
And then the next deer to the right, that deer was in Texas. And it's also a smaller bodied deer, a lot more points. I think he's 13 points on him. And beautiful, beautiful deer. But that's what you see in Texas. And then the bottom center, that's an eastern white-tailed deer. I shot him in Kansas.
And it looks a lot bigger.
Mm-hmm. The body is about 3 times as big, actually.
Wow.
As the other deer. And then to the far right is another Coues deer. And that Coues deer I actually shot in Old Mexico. And he's a much bigger trophy. He's well over 100 inches.
Wow.
And so but they're all 4 varieties of white-tailed deer.
And then you've got your antelope.
Yeah, and then pronghorn antelope, which are their own animal. They're actually not truly antelope. Those are not horns, but they're hair-like growths. They do fall off. The majority of them. There's the point at the base of the skull that remains, and it grows out from there. It's actually hair that grows out, and they do fall out every year. Whereas a horned animal, like a true antelope, they only continue to grow.
Okay.
And they never fall off. Antlers, like on a deer or an elk, they fall off every year and they grow brand new ones.
And then over here.
Those are doll sheep or Barbary sheep.
Okay.
And those were that's actually a ram and a ewe. And those were taken in the mountains.
Right over here, Joel, a little bit more to your right.
Yeah, right here. Yeah, those are Barbary sheep.
And they were, repeat again where you got those?
Those were taken in the mountains that straddled Old Mexico and Texas.
Oh, wow. Cool. Well, you've got quite the collection here, which I hope I have permission to call your North American room, right?
Yes.
So what makes a good hunter? Oh, and that's a javelina, right?
Yes, that's a javelina. And there are on the floor, over here in the corner, there are some full-body javelina, and there's also a bobcat over here as well.
A bobcat, javelina, and are we not also looking at some raccoons?
Raccoons,
Well, excuse me, but I'm kind of concerned about the dusting in this house.
Yeah, Brenda, we used to get on a ladder and vacuum each one of these off, but we found a little easier method is to actually to use a blower and blow the dust off them, and then dust and vacuum the rest of the house afterwards.
God bless you, because that's a lot to do. But so, what makes a good hunter? I'm asking a good hunter what makes a good hunter.
First of all, you have to have the respect and reverence for the animals, which means that you practice whatever your choice of weapons, whether it's a rifle or a shotgun or a bow and arrow, you practice and practice and practice so that it just becomes an extension of yourself, so that when the time comes, it's all muscle memory, and you just do the right thing. You don't have to think about it; it just comes naturally to you. So number
Wow.
one, know your weapon. Make sure that it's in good shape. Whether it's a rifle, it's been cleaned and you've shot it repeatedly, and know that it's sighted in perfectly. Whatever the range is, my rifle scopes have what are called a Boone and Crockett reticle, so that you have your crosshairs, which are typically zeroed in at 200 yards, but then each crosshair below it, each marking will represent, like in my case, each one represents an additional 100 yards. So
Okay.
without having to go through a bunch of gyrations, exactly what you're shooting at. And it's the same way with your bow. You need to learn to judge distances well, or be prepared with a rangefinder. And you would use a rangefinder whether you're hunting with a bow or a rifle, either one. But be prepared, know your equipment, and then of course have the knowledge of how you're going to field dress the animal and deal with it after the hunt, so that you know that you'll get it home, the meat will be safe, and your family can enjoy that food.
So what of all of the hunts that you've been of and all the different wildlife meat, if I can say it that way, that you've eaten, what's your favorite?
In this room, moose.
Really?
Yeah, back straps on a moose, that's pretty special. Of course, the back straps one backstrap by itself is almost more than you can carry. They're that
Wow.
large. But I remember my first moose was this moose in British Columbia, and we took some of the backstrap and cut it into rounds, and we breaded it and fried it. It was referred to as schnitzel, and it was absolutely delicious. Of course, it didn't hurt that it was probably about 30 degrees and the wind blowing 25 miles an hour, and we were very, very hungry.
So,
So,
but you've tried a lot. I mean, deer and elk and
oh, absolutely. Yeah, everything that you see, I have eaten,
yeah,
in my family.
javelina. So you've tried the
Hmm.
bear. You've eaten.
Yes, uh-huh. Yeah, bear meat is actually, bear meat is delicious. There again, it's all in the preparation.
Sure.
Yeah, I'll tell a quick story. I went to Ontario with some dear friends, my son, number one, and then some other dear friends. And we went on a bear hunt. And this was archery bear. And myself and my friend Claude Brown each killed bears the first day.
Wow.
And that evening, I took one of the back straps, and I sliced it into rounds, and I made schnitzel. Well, I had everyone on the hunt said to me, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm cooking some of the bear meat." Well, I was told that it's really greasy and you can't eat it. And I'm like, "Oh, really? Well, how many bear have you ever eaten any bear meat?" "Well, no, I haven't." So and I wonder if these people that gave you that advice, if they'd ever eaten any bear meat or not. So they said, "Well, I'll go ahead and just fix some up for myself. You don't have to eat it." And so I fried up a big pan full of schnitzel. Well, it smells fabulous, and of course everybody was hungry. And they said, "Well, maybe we'll try just one of those." And of course,
But
once they tried one, that whole platter got consumed. That whole big frying pan got consumed, and I had to make another quickly. And as a matter of fact, the successive nights until it was all gone,
wow.
that was the appetizer every night. So
So you can be as hungry as a bear when you're eating bear because you've been hunting, and hunting is an intense sport. That's the other thing about it. It's very physical. So you better
absolutely,
be in shape.
you better be in as good a shape as you can possibly be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, when you get ready for a hunt, what are your first few steps?
Well, of course, the first thing that comes to mind, and depending on what you're going to do, what you're going to hunt, uh, that bear is a good example. Um, we were tracking this bear at about 7,500 to 8,000 feet of elevation. And we were chasing this bear for about 3.5 hours.
Wow.
And, you know, I thought my heart was going to explode out of my chest.
Wow.
But finally we were, you know, when he would get tired, he would just sit down and wait a bit. But we were chasing him with dogs. That's how we were, you know, tracking him. But you had better be in the best shape that you can be, or you know, or you're not going to be successful.
And it sounds like you've also seen some incredible country all over the world.
Yeah, I've been so blessed. I've been on the top of mountains in Alaska, in British Columbia. British Columbia, we hunted off of horseback. You didn't shoot off of the horse, of course, but we hunted off of horseback. That's how we got there, so, as well as in Africa as well. So, you know, you have that added. Just what a wonderment that is to be able to ride a horse off into the wilderness and find your way back.
Do you ever felt like you were maybe born in the wrong period? It seems like some of those serious hunters like you, they're, you know, your modern day mountain men, sort of, kind of.
You know, I used to feel that way, particularly in my younger years. I remember the first time I went to Ontario, Canada. We went on a canoe trip. I went with my father, and I thought I had died and gone to heaven. I had serious thoughts at one point about, you know, there's plenty of time to go home, sell everything, come back, get your log cabin built, and start putting away, you know, food for salting fish and setting out trout lines, and just make a living right there. Yeah. But,
you know, it also makes me think, the times that I've, like, it's always been with family and friends, but the times that I've always thought, oh Lord, don't let me forget this moment, is when you're outside, and when you're in nature. I really think one of our sad losses as a society, if we don't get out in nature, and some people are good about, farmers and ranchers, even just on your farm and ranch, but also the fact that you're hunting. Sometimes I have those moments where I say, don't let me forget this moment, Lord. Don't let me forget this moment. And it's when I'm outside in just some of the most beautiful scenic expanses.
And, you know, to just add to what you've just said, there are people that go through life and are never alive.
Yeah.
And when you're out in the woods, and sometimes in dangerous situations, but when you can enjoy what this incredible world that God has provided for you, you are alive.
Yeah.
I mean, really alive.
Yeah.
You know, when you're paddling a canoe across an open big bay of water, and there are whitecaps slapping out that boat, and if you don't keep that straight right into the waves, you get a little bit sideways, you could swamp that canoe so quickly, and everything you have, and with no chance of survival. So, I mean, you obviously have to use good common sense, but even when you do, there are situations when you will be in danger. And it's, you know, basically, you know, your wits against nature, and you will never be more alive than in those situations.
You walk away from that, and as trying as it was the most treasured experience you'll never forget. That's awesome.
And when you do those things with others, there's a bond that forms that will never be broken.
Right. You know, it makes me think that saying is, a family that camps together stays together, and a family that prays together, but a family that camps together stays together. And it's because, you know, you're trudging and doing some things that you normally wouldn't be doing, and it's not always easy camping.
Yeah. We had the experience once. We had taken a canoe trip, and there were 8 of us. My son was along, and we had portaged into some lakes and gone much further than probably most people would have gone in. This in This is an area up in Ontario. And we found an incredible place to camp on an island where it had magnificent clear water for swimming and diving, and the fishing was phenomenal. But it took us almost 2 days of hard paddling to get there. And these were long, narrow lakes, one on top of the other. And we had gone all the way from what would have been the east end of one lake, long, narrow lake, to the far west end, up through Cache Bay and portaged over Silver Falls, and into another lake called Saginaw Lake, and gone to the far east end of it. And it took us twofold hard days to get there. Well, we didn't want to leave, and we thought, my goodness, if we could just, instead of having to paddle all the way back around, if we just cut across land, we could do that easily in less than one day, rather than take, and why not get one free day of fishing and, living out here? So we all agreed that's what we would do. Well, we had to carry all our packs and canoes across the land from Saginaw Lake into Saginaw Lake, and with no trail other than just our wits. And we went through some awful, rocky, hilly bogs. There was a bog that I have a brother that's about 6'5", a little over 6'5", that he stepped off into that, and he went into his chin.
Oh wow!
That's how we call it we call them moose bogs. So, but we did it. We pushed, pulled, and drug those canoes and all those packs, and we did it in less than a day, and we made it.
You had the extra day on the lake because you did it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And even though it was drudgery getting out of there, again, you created a memory you'll never forget.
Oh yeah, and the bond that we had between all of us is we'll all hold that dear for the rest of our lives.
Yeah.
And
awesome.
People that you can count on,
yeah.
and when things get really tough, and they were really tough, that's pretty special.
Yeah, absolutely. Finally, when you take someone on that first hunt, let's say that they have been practicing with the appropriate gun or bow or
Mm-hmm.
tool for
Mm-hmm.
the hunt,
mm-hmm.
And they developed their muscle memory because they took your advice and did all the practice. But what are the things that you're going to try to instill in them before heading out?
Well, of course, the first answer is safety. They have to be taught, and most people either go through a hunter safety course, mm-hmm. And are certified, which is a great idea, particularly for people that live in cities.
Right.
That really don't have the opportunity. They didn't get to go hunting with father and grandfather, and just learn on the farm, so to speak.
Right.
But regardless, number one is safety, to make sure that no one. Let's be honest. There are a lot of people that die every single year from guns that was just a mistake. Mm-hmm. Somebody, they didn't unload their gun before they put it in the vehicle.
Oh, God bless them.
Yeah. Just simple common sense thing. Never, ever, ever point a gun at someone, even though it's unloaded, because there'll be that one time, one mistake.
One bullet was left in the chamber, even though you cleared the gun.
Or you're prepared to go and you have everything ready, and the gun is left loaded, and a child plays with it. God forbid. So safety is number one, and I think after that, the rest is common sense. Obviously, making sure that people are physically in the right state, that they have the right frame of mind to know what they could come up against, that they have all the proper clothing. That's so important. I mean, you could be you could be for example, once I got to hunt on Kodiak Island in Alaska for black-tailed Kodiak Island deer. Well, it can be 20 below, or
Oh,
it could be 80 degrees,
wow.
and the weather can change quickly. And I mean, it can be beautiful and sunny, and the next thing you know, in 30 minutes, it can be blowing and ice cold water. So you have to have all the right clothing so you can survive.
Mm.
That's pretty critical too. But and also, I think, without maybe even saying it, you kind of need to know what someone's character is. Where when things do get tough, will you be able to trust them that they will, they'll be there, that
Yeah.
they're not going to be somebody that's going to ever give up.
So there would be some people then you would never hunt with.
Yes, there are some people that you wouldn't ever take on a canoe trip with you.
Okay.
That
Yeah.
so you kind of someone needs to really know.
Because you have to have each other's back.
Because
And
you're going to be married for a little while, so to
yeah.
speak.
And it sounds like it's not so much just the actual act of, you know, pulling the bow back or pulling the trigger on the gun to kill your bear. It's the getting in and the getting out that
Mm-hmm.
might be.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Just talking to you is making me think that way.
Yeah, I mean, that's why they call it hunting, not killing. It's all about the hunt and doing everything right. And, and when you leave a camp spot, it looks like nobody has ever been there before. Cleaning up, you'd never, ever leave a piece of trash, ever. Just having respect for, as I say, for the Creator, God's creations, and that's really because you're just getting to enjoy it for a little
Right.
bit. You're just a visitor there.
Yeah.
It's not yours.
I promise this will be my last question because the other one was supposed to be the last question. And you kind of indicated with your elk, but a hunt that you didn't know you would make it back because you guys were so dehydrated. So have you ever had another instance like that?
Yeah, I'll tell you one really wonderful story. When I was in British Columbia, we were hunting mountain caribou. We're on horseback, and it was myself and one other guy. His name was Jason. He was actually a native Indian in British Columbia, and quite a bit younger than me. And we had made mountain caribou. There are three kinds of caribou. First of all, there's the barren ground caribou that you see thousands of in Alaska, and then there are a woodland caribou, which is a little bit smaller animal, but quite his rack is quite impressive. And then a mountain caribou, which is what I was hunting. Mountain caribou are typically in small bands, usually 6 to 9 animals, and they pretty much just feed into the wind. They want to know what's in front of them, whether it's a grizzly bear or a wolf pack or etc. And so they really never stop moving. They just keep going.
Graze as they
and they're fast. So we had made this was as it turns out, it was the fourth stalk. The other three were not successful. Fourth stalk, and we'd parked tied our horses up and literally crawled way up on top and this is way up above the tree line where these animals are. Wow. So it's way up on top of the mountains where no tree will grow. And there was one large rock. I crawled up to that rock, and I was able to shoot my bull caribou. But the wind was blowing probably 40, 50 miles an hour. And it was snowing. The snow was blowing horizontally. And so I'll just say that I was successful. We killed him. It was a perfect shot. We get up there and we gutted the animal, field dressed him. But by then it was starting to get dark because the storm was increasing. There was still sunlight, but it was just getting thicker and thicker. And so what we decided to do was, we knew in order to get home before this thing really got bad and it got dark, all we could do was prop him open. I took off my T-shirt and tied it around the antlers so that my scent would be there. So hopefully wolves or a grizzly bear or something would leave it alone until we could come back and recover it the next day.
Okay.
And so his name was Jason. He hopped. We got ready to leave. He got on his horse, and I hopped on mine, and he started taking off, and he was going straight east. Now, mind you can't see the sun. The snow was blowing sideways. It was almost dark it was so thick. Well, I knew that he was going the wrong direction, 180 degrees in the wrong direction.
Oh, wow.
I knew that. And at least I thought I did. And my horse, I had an incredible horse. My horse sensed that we were going the wrong direction too. And he's trying to tell me that. And I'm telling him, and we're arguing about this. And he basically told me that he was the professional. He knew what he was doing. He grew up here. Just follow.
Okay.
We'll be, because I know where I'm going. Well, the further we went, we rode for over an hour, about an hour and a half in the wrong direction. And I knew it. My horse knew it. And it's getting dangerous because it was so cold. The temperature's dropping. The blizzard was not letting up.
Oh.
We were going to be stuck out in the open. It wasn't just, it would have been, we weren't prepared. We did not have any bedrolls or anything to
to bundle up in.
To survive. You're not going to light a fire and stay warm. And even the horses would have been in danger. So I'm praying, please, God, please show me some sign, something, please, Lord. And before I realize it, off to my left, a hole just opens up in the clouds. And there was the mountain that I had in my mind, which was straight north. And the snow was actually, kind of, it was in the shape of a woman's breasts, quite frankly. And so I still had that fresh in my mind. And
you had the vision.
Yeah. And I said, and I mean, it's just blowing solid, and it's, in the clouds, an area opens up. I said, Jason, look, do you see that mountain right there? Do you see that snow? It looks just like a woman's breast. I said, I saw that. That is straight north. We're going east. We need to go west. And I said, I've been praying for some sign, and there it is. He said, well, I'm sure glad. He says, because I have to admit I'm lost, and I was praying for a sign too.
Wow.
Yeah.
But you made it. So you turned around.
We turned around. So now we had 3 hours to get back just to where we started. We just kept going. We knew if we were going in the right direction, we would come to this river drainage, which was not a big river, but it was, it was flowing. And we did come to that. And when we followed it down the mountain, and eventually the snow let up, and we had seen a cow, a big moose cow with a calf in that area, and we spotted her as well as more evidence that we were going in the right direction.
Oh, good.
And then by the time we got down to the bottom of that mountain, we found where we had turned, and then we found our way back to camp. But I'm
getting scared just listening to that.
Yeah, well, and it teaches you, and particularly places like Alaska and British Columbia, there are so many ways to get yourself hurt, and to get turned around. And at that time, I didn't have a GPS. There was no. Sure. I didn't have something like that. And they, not that they weren't available, they were, but they didn't perform very well. And in that situation, it probably wouldn't have worked anyway.
Wow!
But
what a story!
Yeah,
I'm glad that you were praying, and I'm glad that you survived it, and you're here to tell it. Did you get your caribou?
Oh yeah. Okay, the next day we had no problem to find it.
Good.
Well, of course, we had quite a bit of experience, climbing over that part of the world. And as a matter of fact, it's in my office if you'd like to see it.
Yeah, so, we'll have to see it.
Okay.
we wrap this up. And you know, even the experts can get it wrong, and that's why you just have to persevere and in
Yeah,
your case,
today
see
there
a
are,
landmark that really told you where you needed to go.
yeah, and you know, and that's you had to be aware of your, you know, your
Surroundings.
surroundings at all
Yeah.
times, and keep, you know, keep track of things, tick them off. Today there are electronic devices that are so good, Onyx, Avenza. There are wonderful, you know, aids to keep you from getting lost. And you well should take care of, you know, take advantage of those today.
Yes.
But they just weren't available. You know, back then you just had to rely on your wits.
Sounds like prayer is a
Yeah.
good tool in the toolbox when you're hunting.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Noah Hiscox, this was a wonderful
Oh,
interview and a
well,
great time.
my pleasure, Julie.
And thank you for leading off with our hunt for the next 2 months. We're hunting for hunters. So our farmers and ranchers, we're going to interview the director of Game and Fish, president of a hunting club. Stay with us. It's going to be an adventurous 2 months. Blessings to you all.